welcome to my channel. So this is the first time I ever make a YouTube channel, obviously. This is my first vlog, and basically what I'm going to talk about is my birth story. I have a lot of friends on Instagram who have always wondered like what went on, simply because I was always keeping you guys up to date on Instagram of what was going on with my son and my pregnancy, because my son was in the NICU for 5 months over at UCLA. I'm from Bakersfield, so that's like 2 hours away from home from here. So basically, while I was pregnant, I found out at 16 weeks that first it was a boy. We went in to find the gender reveal, and they said that the baby was being shy, so they didn't tell us. They didn't tell us what it was. That day, me and Brian's my boyfriend, we were on our way to a Dodger game, and I was excited for the Dodger game, and then they called me saying, "Hey, did you just come in for an ultrasound for a gender reveal?" Or yeah. And so I said, "Yeah," and then they said, "Well, we need you to come. We need you to set up an appointment with the specialist because the doctor thinks he saw something in the ultrasound." At that very moment, my heart dropped. Like, that has always been my fear of like something happening to me while I'm pregnant, or to the baby. And whenever they said that, like, I just felt my heart drop. Like, all I kept thinking was, "God, please, 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 like, don't let it be something bad." Like, I don't know, I just thought the worst. And so the moment that they said that, I was like, okay, well, give me the number. So I called the number. The next appointment for that specialist was in 2 weeks from that day. So I had to wait 2 weeks in order for me to find out what was wrong with Nathan. My son's name is Nathan. And so, we enjoyed the Dodger game, but like, at the back of my head, I was just thinking, and I'm sure Brian was as well, we were just thinking, like, what's going on? And I was just crying on our way over there because I was, it's my baby. Like, I was excited. Like, we were excited to have this baby, and we were just wondering, like, what was going on. And so, those 2 weeks go by every single day wondering, like, I wonder what it is. I just kept praying. Like, I remember every night throughout those 2 weeks, I just kept, like, praying, like, hoping, like, please don't let it be something, like, really, really bad. Like, whatever it is, like, with my faith that I have in God and my beliefs, like, I just kept telling myself, like, whatever it is, I know I'm gonna get through it. I know God's gonna, like, help us, and we'll get through it. So finally the day came, and we go, and they do the ultrasound, and I guess it's like a really like a 3D one where they can actually see exactly, like, everything. And I forgot to mention, so usually when you go for an ultrasound, or a gender reveal or whatever, they give you an ultrasound, and you can see in the ultrasound, you can see, like, the full baby, like, all, like, head to toe in the ultrasound. And after, whenever we went in, the lady that did the ultrasound, she was like, she gave me the ultrasound, and it was just the head. And I kept, like, I was thinking, like, I know we're trying not to see if it's a boy or a girl, but she was already saying that the baby was being shy, so I'm sure we weren't able to even identify if it was a boy or a girl if she would have given us, like, the full picture. So it was just the head, and it was weird to me that it was just the head, but I didn't really think anything of it. So then whenever we went to the specialist did the ultrasound. First thing that he said was, your baby has gastroschisis. And I didn't even know what that meant, but I just started crying. Like, my hands were shaking, and I just thought, oh my goodness, like, something's wrong. And then my mom, my sister, and Bryant were there with me, and he explained to me what gastroschisis was. He was telling me, he started off by saying, this happens a lot with first-time young moms. And I thought, okay, like what is it? So then he finally explained to me what gastroschisis was, and what it is like the babies are born with the intestines outside of their tummy. So then right away I thought that's why the first time we went to go get like the gender reveal, I only got a picture of the head, and that's what I think. So then he told me that he was born with the intestines outside, and I right away asked like, does that get fixed? And I've never really heard of that. I mean, in school with like health class and med and all that, I kind of had an idea of what it was, but I didn't really know. So then he said that, and then he continued on and was like, and your baby has arthrogryposis, and your baby has rocker bottom feet, and your baby has hyperextended neck. And he's just going on and on and on about everything that that was wrong with Nathan. And so I was just crying, and I looked up and I was like, oh, like I don't even know, like it's just crazy to think back to that day. So then whenever he explained to me, arthrogryposis is it's when their arms are extended and they don't move their arms, so they're just like this. At first in the ultrasound, only one of them, it only looked like one of them was just really stiff and straight. You couldn't really tell on the other one. So I just remember him like hitting me hard on my stomach with the whatever it is, I don't even know what it's called. And he's trying to like make the baby move. And then he shows, like you can see in the ultrasound where the arm is just like stiff, and then I just kept thinking, no, like he's being lazy, he just doesn't want to move or whatever. And then so he did that, and then he said that his head was like this, so that his head was like he had a hyperextended neck, so it's like this, like he's. And then so the doctor stood up, or the specialist stood up, and he explained to me how Nathan was gonna look. And he's like, your baby's like this, and he's like this. So and I'm like, oh my goodness, like what? So then right away he just said, your baby's gonna have some type of syndrome. Your baby's gonna have a lot of problems. This baby has a lot of issues. Like he just kept going on saying all these negative things. And let me just start off by saying I had the worst experience with this specialist. Like, it was always emotional. It was always negative. And my mom and my mom and my sister and Brian were always the ones that were there. And my mom is just very straight up, and she was like, well, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean he has a syndrome? The baby has a syndrome. What kind of syndrome? You're a doctor. You should know. So we were just scared. And then, so he said, we're going to do a blood work. And see, if we find anything or whatever, a genetic test. The lady, when you first go in, it's an ultrasound lady, and she does the ultrasound, and she said, so your blood work came back fine, and then she said, it came out negative, and then we were so happy, and then she's like, do you want to know the gender? And then I looked over at Brian, like saying, like, do we want to know? And we didn't want to know because we were planning on having a gender reveal, but then I decided, right when she asked me, do you want to know the gender, I said yes right away, and then I looked over at Bryant, because like I said, at first we wanted to do a gender reveal party and all that stuff, and because we were so excited, and why not have one? But then with everything going on, everything the specialist told me that was going on with the baby, I thought, if my baby's going through something, I want to know if it's a boy or a girl. That way I can name the baby and just, start talking to the baby and saying, praying for the baby and calling the baby by its name. So then she said it was a boy. And right when she said it was a boy, I looked at my mom and my sister, like we were so excited. We expected her to just say it's a girl. So it was so crazy. My family's full of girls. I think Brian and his family, it's a lot of girls too, but I see mostly boys in his immediate family. And so we were just so excited. Like, we were having our first boy. Like, in my family, it's just 3 girls. And then, yeah, there's just a lot of girls in our family. So then we were so excited. And I already knew the name that I wanted to name him. It was Nathan. Ever since I found out that I was pregnant, I thought, if it's a boy, it's going to be Nathan. If it's a girl, I had a long list of all of these girl names. But if it was a boy, I was going to name him Nathan. So then, right whenever she told us that, she tells us the doctor will be right in with you. So he came in, the specialist came in, and then he said, you know, we talked more about what was going on. Again, he was checking the baby and like hitting me again, trying to make his arms move, and the arms, they didn't really move. Like, now that I think back on it, I remember sitting there and looking and saying no, like, you know, I would look at anything and I'd be like, no, it did move, or it did move, and then he would say they're not moving, and then my mom was just like, I think he's just being lazy, and then we thought too, like, I wanted to think, you know, he's just being lazy. So then he just kept hitting my stomach, like, really hard, and then whenever he was checking, like, lower, like, it was just really hard, and his feet moved fine, but then, you know, his arms were just stiff. We never saw him move his arms, and then he said, oh, your baby's breached. This baby's breached. And then I'm like, my mom's like, well, doesn't that get, like, you know, that's an easy fix. You know, I mean, some babies don't turn themselves around and other babies do, but that was fine, you know. But he made it seem like, oh, that's such a big thing. And we just wanted to go into an ultrasound appointment happy. Like, we wanted to see our baby. I don't care that this was going on. You know, I do care, but besides the point, this was my baby, my son, and, you know, I wanted it to be like, I wanted to see him and all this stuff, but he didn't really, you know, it was just more like he'd be looking around and he'd be like, oh, this is wrong. So then now talking about the rocker bottom feet. So rocker bottom feet is when their foot is like a rocking chair, basically, like, you know, like when you rock. So his foot's like this, and you can see it a lot in the ultrasound, and then their heel is a little bit pushed out. So here's like your ankle, and then the heel is like pushed out a little bit. So then he said that, and then the head at that point wasn't hyperextended anymore. He said, you know, he's like his head is fine. He checked the circumference of the head, and he's like, it's fine and whatever. So then we were just checking the growth. Like, he really wanted to be checking the baby's growth frequently. So I had an appointment with him every 4 weeks, and then I had an appointment with my primary doctor every 2 weeks. So basically every 2 weeks I had an appointment, and then I was considered a high risk pregnancy. So at my job, you know, I didn't really do anything. Hardly ever went to work. I tried to take it easy. I didn't really get morning sickness. I had it like maybe for 2 weeks or 3, like in the very beginning. But then what I did have a lot was heartburn. I had a lot of heartburn, and that really that was not fun. So then I remember me and Brian just talking about it and just saying, you know, like, what are we gonna do? And this part is probably gonna get, like, hopefully I don't start talking, because I'm really getting into, like, I really want you guys to know exactly what was going on. And so basically when we got home, we talked about it, and I remember Brian just, you know, Brian wants to be, you know, he's gonna be, like, he wants to be strong. He wanted to be strong for me. He would always tell me, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. And I couldn't, like, I couldn't believe what was going on. So much was going on in my head. And then I remember going over to his house, and I was in his room, and then he went into the restroom, and I just hear banging on the walls. And so he's banging on the walls, and he's crying, and then I'm just thinking, like, oh my God, like, I can't believe, like, you know, this is real, like, this is really happening, something's going on with Nathan. And then he came out after a while, and I kept, like, you know, we were talking about it, and I just told him, I was like, it's gonna be okay, like, we have to have faith. Like, we have to have faith that everything's gonna be okay, that everything's gonna be fine with him, that you know, God has him. And I just kept telling that to myself, like, every single day of my pregnancy. Like, just know, you know, from the 16th week mark all the way till when I had him, it was a lot to take in. Like, it was a lot. So whenever, me and Brian would sit and we talk, and we would talk about what was going on. And honestly, to be completely honest with you guys, it did come to the point where we thought, like, if something's, like, if he's just gonna be, this is exactly what we said. If he's just gonna be in tubes, or if he's gonna be living a life where, like, living like a vegetable, basically, or like where he can't do anything, where we have to keep doing everything for him, or like where he's not gonna have a life, we're not gonna have a life, we actually said that if that's gonna happen, we're not gonna have him. Like, we said that. And because we just thought, we were just thinking, it was a really emotional thing, and we just thought, I don't know what's gonna happen. And so, I would tell my mom about that, and they would just stay quiet. And then me and Brian, we just thought, like, we had to think about ourselves too. Like, that means, no, I wouldn't say no life, but that would just mean, like, we just thought the worst. Like, we thought, what if what if his life is just constant, like, things going on with him? Like, I don't even know how to explain it. But so we made a decision, and we just said, well, we thought we made a decision, because we ended up changing our minds, but we made a decision saying, if the results come back saying, if they do further testing and the results come back that he has something like bad, like a really bad syndrome or something, then we're just not gonna go through with the pregnancy. So then, whenever we went back to appointment, he told me, the next 2 weeks, he told me, we're gonna do an amniocentesis. Do you want to do that? And that's when they stick a needle in your stomach, and they put it into the amniotic sac, where the fluid is, the amniotic fluid. They take out that fluid and they test it, and that fluid is the baby's fluid, is what the baby is making, and that's how they'll know. So then that went through. They took that test, and they said that it was gonna, that's gonna tell us what kind of syndrome he has. And he said it like that. They'll tell us what kind of syndrome. He didn't say they'll tell us if he has a syndrome. He said they'll tell us what kind of syndrome. So we did all our research. I looked up every single syndrome that was there. Maybe not all of them, but I tried to keep up, and I tried to, like, I did a lot of, I kind of had an idea of what syndrome, like what to expect from different syndromes. So then, whenever we went and we did the amniotic fluid, the amniocentesis, that test, and we finally went back to the appointment for the results, and she said, the results haven't came back yet. And so that was like another week. So I had to wait maybe like 2 to 3 weeks in order for me to find out the results of the amniocentesis. And when we finally went in for our results, they said, the test isn't back yet. And then, I'm not sure. Yeah, so they said the results aren't back yet. So then we went home, still sad, like wondering what's going on, but still remaining calm and as strong as we can be, and just having faith and praying and praying and praying. And then finally, I went to my primary doctor. I had an appointment with my primary doctor, and me and him, we were talking about, like, what was going on. He was telling me about, like, what he's seen in the past with different, pregnancies, and we were just talking. And then, as I'm waiting for him to come back, I get a phone call, and it was the specialist. The results came back. They came back normal, and I wanted to cry so much because I was so happy. Like, I was praying so much for that, for those words, for them to say, the results came back normal or negative. And then I was on the phone, and I'm like, and then he's like, they came back negative. And then he still continued to say, do you want to keep the baby? And in my head, I'm like, what are you talking about? I had totally forgotten that, not that we ever said it to anybody. Me and Brian kept that to ourselves. We never told anybody that we were kind of thinking, we were in between a yes or a no. But I think days before that, I had a talk with my dad, and we were talking about it, and I came into a realization, like, why am I gonna make a decision based off some, something that my baby has and we don't even know that yet. And it was just bad. Like I couldn't get myself to not go through with the pregnancy. I just thought no matter how he comes, like no matter what, we're gonna love him. This is my baby. We plan to have him. We wanted to start a family. Like this is our baby. Like we were trying to have a baby. Like why? So then I spoke to Brian and I told him about that, and I was like, and we both, talked about it, and then Brian agreed. And so then when I had that talk with my dad that day, like I just thought to myself, like, no, like there's no if, there's no maybe, there's no yes or no. It's like, yes, I'm gonna have him. So then and to be honest, in my head I always kept thinking like, no, I know I'm not gonna go through with that. Like say the results did come back and it said like something bad was going on, I just couldn't get myself to do it. And so whenever the specialist called me and said, the results are negative, do you still want to keep him? And I was like, yes. I literally said that. I was like, yes. He goes, okay. And then he said, okay, because you're in I think I was like 24 weeks or 23 weeks, and I had it till the 24 weeks to terminate the pregnancy. And so whenever I said that, he said, okay. And then he said that he set up my appointment for next time, and he kind of seemed like, oh my gosh, like really? I'm telling you, I had the worst experience with this specialist. So then whenever I get out of so my doctor comes back, and then I tell him the good news, and he was so happy for me. He gave me a hug, and he's like, that's good. Like you're a woman of faith, because I would talk to his doctor about stuff like that. So he, we talked about that, and I was just so happy. I get out of the doctor's office and I call everyone. First I called Brian, and he was so excited. I called my mom, I called my dad, I called my aunts, I called my cousin, I called my sisters, I called my best friend. Like I literally called everyone, and I said, he doesn't have anything. There's no syndrome. So then, days go by, and I still have my appointments with him, but they're still negative. Like it was just so bad, where my doctor was just so, oh, he's not growing, and he's not this, and he's not that. You would think, pregnancy is supposed to be a happy time in your life, and it wasn't. Like it started off at 16 weeks, and it's like when I found out, and from then on all the way till I had him, like it was just, it was just bad. And my doctor had already told me, I want you to give birth at UCLA, the university in Los Angeles. So then, we asked why, and he said, they have the best doctors there, the surgeons. Your baby's gonna need surgery right after he is born because of the intestine, so they need to put him back in. And I was like, okay, that's fine. They made sure to see if the insurance covered it. They checked that, and everything was fine. So then we finally get to the point where I think I was like 33 weeks, and my doctor's like, you're getting closer and closer. And I remember everyone saying like, you're so small, you're so small. And I would say, I don't know, everyone's different. But then I would think, yeah, I really am. Like, I'm pretty small for 6 months or 7 months. And I had a really good pregnancy, like physically, except the heartburn. Like, I didn't throw up. I had no cravings, which I was never like, oh yeah, I'm craving this. Or I was never like that. The only thing that I did have was just heartburn. But other than that, I was pretty energized towards the end. So whenever it came down to like 33, 34 weeks, my doctor was telling me, like, you're going to give birth soon. Like, the specialist said, you're going to give birth soon. You probably won't even make it to 38 weeks. And, if you're at 38 weeks, that's considered not full term, but that's like 37 weeks is still preemie. I believe 37 or 38 weeks is still preemie, a premature baby. So then my primary doctor said, you need to start getting the paperwork done, start calling. Brian has a grandma that lives over there, so we were already talking to her and telling her, that's where we're gonna go. We were gonna stay there with her, So then whenever I do give birth, I go to UCLA. So then the day that I turned 35, no, so I was 34 weeks and like 34 weeks and like 4 or 5 days, I think. I was almost 35 weeks. And I went for an appointment, and the doctor, my primary doctor, was looking at my stomach, you know, checking the heart and all that. And then he's like, "You're contracting," and he's like looking at my stomach, and he's like, "You're contracting." And I was like, I don't even know what a contraction is. Like, I don't know what to feel. He's like, "Yeah, you see how tight it is?" And then he showed Bryant, and he's like, "Yeah." And then I remembered, like, I remember feeling that, but I never knew it was like a contraction. I always thought it was like my baby pushing hard on me or something, like, you know, but it was a contraction. Those were contractions. So basically, like, I thought, like, you know, I'm sure a lot of you moms know, like, what a contraction feels like. I still don't even know, but so it was going, like, it would get tight and like pointy at the top, and I was looking at it and I was having like a few, and he was like, "Yeah, like, those are contractions, or the Braxton Hicks." And then so he's like, you need to go to UCLA, like, you need to get down there, like, as soon as possible. So then I looked at Brian, and in my head I thought, we're leaving tonight. Like, I am not taking no chances. If I would have, he would say, if you have birth here, they're gonna fly out your baby in a helicopter to UCLA. Like, they're not even gonna, my doctor's not gonna let them do anything here in Bakersfield. They're gonna fly him out to UCLA, and I couldn't have that. So I just thought, no, I have to be there that day, so I had to be prepared. So that same day, I told Bryant, we called his grandma, I packed all my stuff. So we get there that night. It was on a Wednesday night, I believe. Yeah, Wednesday night. So we get there, and Bryant asks me, "Do you want to go get checked? Like, do you want to go get yourself checked to see if you're like, you know, if you're dilating or anything like that?" And so I was like, "No, let's not go today. Let's go tomorrow." Like, I felt tired, and I was like, "Let's just go tomorrow." And then, so he's like, "Okay." So then the next day we go at night, and I just go just to get like a regular checkup, just so they can, you know, check me. And mostly because my doctor had said, "You're gonna give birth anytime, like one of these days." So then I go, and they're checking me. And then they have the monitor, and they're checking, you know, his heart rate and then my contractions. And I'm contracting. Like, it shows there that I'm contracting, but I don't even feel them, or I don't know. And then, so we're there, and they have that little thing where, you know, on your stomach, and then Brian's sitting there, and I'm just laying there, and I'm texting with, you know, my friends and my family, telling them, you know, this is happening. All of a sudden, a lot of people come, like a lot of doctors, and then they push Bryant to the side, and they come, and they tell me to get on all fours, some like this, and like on fours. They're rushing me over to a different room. They start prepping me. They put an IV. It was like so fast, and I didn't know what was going on. And then they finally told me, like, your baby's heart rate was going down. But then I heard them say, "Oh, he's back, he's up." So basically they were preparing me to, you know, in case they needed to take him out right away. But no, I guess, you know, Nathan's heart rate came back up. And then they explained to me, they put on the IV, they told me what was going on. Brian was scared, I was scared. Like, it was really scary how everyone just came rushing in. And they just told me, flip over. They helped me. They basically flipped me over for me. Like, they just flipped me over, and then they just rushed me in the little bed. And then after that, you know, when the heart rate came back up, we were just there, and then they explained to me what was going on. And then they said, you know, we're going to have to keep you here. Like, we're going to keep you overnight, because if he keeps doing this, we're going to have to take him out. Like, you know, emergency C-section. So I was like, okay. So then I called my mom, and I was like, they're keeping me overnight. And then the next day, that was on a Thursday. That Thursday I had turned 35 weeks. So then the next day, on Friday, I'm already in a room. They put me in a room. I'm there. Brian was there. He had left back home to go do something. I think it was something like he needed to go pay something. that he needed to do it like right away, or that he couldn't do it over the phone, or I think he needed to turn in like a paper because he was still in school. And then so then my family came over. Yeah, it was that Thursday. Actually, it was Thursday night. They got there like at 12, like at midnight or 1 in the morning. And I just remember waking up and I see them there. And so then they stayed the night with me there. And then that's the night. Then the next day on Friday, that's when Bryant wasn't there. He had left, and I had told him, you know, it's fine. You can go. Like, you know, I don't think I'm gonna have him today, or like anytime soon. So he had left, and then I was there with my mom. I was eating. They would bring me food and all that stuff, and then doctors would come in and check on me. And then all of a sudden, doctors come in again, and they take my bed out and they rush me out. And this time they rushed me to like the operating room. So I see, you know, nurses with doctors with everything on, like they're ready. I turned around and I see like this lady putting in like the scalpels and all that stuff and like all these things, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. And then I heard them all say, he's back up. So then they take me back, and then they told me, you know, it's because his heart rate keeps going down. And then another doctor came back in and said, you know, this is what's going on. Like the main doctor, she told me, she came back in and she explained to me everything that was going on. And then she told me, you know, she asked me how was my pregnancy, what was my birth plan. And I said, well, I thought I could only have a C-section, because my whole entire pregnancy, my specialist was telling me you can only have a C-section. My specialist always told me that that's the only way that you can have a baby with gastroschisis is by C-section. But then I had done my research, and I had read online where it says that doctors recommend a regular vaginal birth for women who have babies with gastroschisis because of like exposure to infection and I don't know what else. So then she told me, you know, no, like you can have a vaginal delivery if there's no other reason for you to have a C-section, like your baby's not breached. I mean, that's another thing. Like Nathan had already flipped over, so he wasn't breached anymore. So she said, you know, if there's no other reason for you to have a C-section, you don't have to have a C-section. So then I thought, oh my goodness, I'm gonna push this baby out. So she's like, yeah, you can push, like you can have a regular birth, like you can have him vaginally. And then I got excited because I always wanted that. Like I wanted to have him, I wanted to have a vaginal birth. I was so scared of a C-section. Not much scared of a C-section, I just didn't want a C-section. And then, so I was like, okay, so then I was preparing myself, mentally preparing myself, because the whole time, like I said, I was just thinking I'm gonna have a C-section, I'm not gonna feel anything, blah, blah, blah. Then I texted my best friend, I was like, dude, I'm gonna have a vaginal birth, like I'm gonna push Nathan out. And she's like, oh my goodness. And so I was excited about that. I know that's weird, but I was also kind of nervous. And then, you know, we're there, I think it was like around noon or 1 o'clock, and I'm eating, and then as I'm eating, I remember I was eating a burrito, and as I'm eating, they come in again and they rush me out. And they took me back to that operating room. And then they're still saying, like, he's still down. And then I heard them say, he's back up. So this is the third time that they took me into the operating room. Well, the second time to the operating room, but this is the third time that Nathan did this, his heart rate went down. And, you know, they told me, you know, if he keeps doing this, we have to take him out, like, right away. That's why we keep rushing you, because, you know, we're not trying to take any chances. And these doctors at UCLA are so good. Like, as soon as, I never knew when the heart rate would go down, but it was just like all of them. Like, it wasn't just one by one, it was just all of them coming. It's like they were all just sitting there watching the monitor and watching me and watching the heart rate. Like, they were on top of it. So then when they got there, when they took me to the operating room, they were telling me, you know, right after his heart rate went up, they said, you know, this is why we keep doing this. If his heart rate keeps going down, we have to take him out. So then they said, how about we schedule you a C-section? And I was like, okay. They're like, we don't want to take any more chances, so let's just schedule you a C-section for 8 p.m. tonight. And I was like, okay. I text Brian, and he had plenty of time to get there by then. And then we were like, okay, so I texted all my family, my dad, I called everyone, and then I was like, I'm gonna have a C-section. They're gonna take him out at 8 p.m. Like that's my scheduled C-section. And then so they take me to the room. The nurse comes and preps me for a C-section, and I'm there. And then I even did my hair in a braid, and like I was getting ready. And then they gave my mom the daddy suit just in case Brian didn't come on time. And we were all just getting ready. I FaceTimed my cousin, and we were just ready for 8 p.m. to get there. I think it was like 6 something. And then, what do you know? Nathan's heart rate goes down again. This time, they rushed me, and they said he's down. And then they were all there. Like, I'm getting the chills because this was so scary. I swear it was so scary. When they were all there, the lady that was prepping me, the nurse that was prepping me, they had pushed her out of the way, and then the doctors got around me, and then they were like, is he still down? Okay, give him 10 more seconds. And then it's still down. It's like, no, he's not coming up. He's not coming up. Then that's whenever they rushed me to the operating room. All I remember was being like I was laying down. I remember the blue thing over me. All I hear in the background is, a female, 23 years old, birthday, blah, 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 baby boy, gastroschisis, electroglycosis, and all this stuff, naming everything, about Nathan, like getting prepared to take out the baby. And then the people that, I just see 2 doctors right here, and they said, we're going to take very good care of you, and you're in very good care of you. Nate, your baby is in good hands. And I'm just there, and I'm just like really scared, and like I remember putting them putting the mask on me, and then like 5, 4, and that's it. That's all I remember. And then waking up, and they're taking me in the bed. I remember them pushing me to a room, and then I see my mom, Brian, my sisters, and I'm going in. And then my mom comes to me, and she's like, Mija, you did it, you're a mom. And she starts crying, and then I start crying. And then they put me back in, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm like I was literally like if I had just pushed, but I wasn't. I was just scared, but then again, I was kind of like out of it. And then I hear the doctor tell Brian, like, do you want to go see the baby? And then Brian leaves, and then when Brian comes back, he's telling my mom, like, he's so small. This was literally Brian. He's so small, and he looks exactly like what the doctor said. He's so small, and he looks exactly like what the doctor said. And so he was like literally going like this. And then he tells my mom, like, he just looks scared. And then they ask me if I want to go see him. And then I was like, okay. So then we go, and I see him. They take me in the bed, and I just see Nathan laying there, the whitest baby ever. And I see him just laying there. And then, his arms were straight down. He had a patch over his belly. And then he had a breathing tube. He had a tube down his nose. He had 2 tubes down his nose, one in his mouth. Okay, so I had to go get him because he was being a little fussy. But so I get there, and I just see him. I just see white. It's like the whitest baby that I've seen in the NICU, in the pod. And so I do see his arms like this, and the tubes and all that. And then the nurse is explaining to me, like, this is that, this is, all this stuff. And then one of the doctors came by and was talking to me, and then she started saying, he doesn't look like a regular baby. And then I'm just listening to what she's saying, and she's just telling me, like, he doesn't look like a regular baby. He doesn't look like a normal baby. And then she started pointing out stuff, and then she's like his nose is this way, his head is a pointy. Keep in mind, his head was all the way in me. Like I felt him while I was walking. I felt when he dropped. And I've seen babies come out, like, they're all squished, or they get cone heads, and that was Nathan. That's how he looked. But this doctor was just pointing out some stuff. She did mention to me about the arms, and then the rocker bottom feet, And then I just thought to myself, like, you know, I know that. Like, I didn't even act surprised or anything, or I didn't ask questions. I already knew what to expect. This was not a surprise to me. And then she explained to me about the patch on his tummy, which was what they had done, like the surgery after they had put the intestines back in. So then that happened. So then whenever she left, I took a picture of him. I got to sit there with, like, you know, be there with him for a little bit. My mom looked scared. When I go back, you know, our family's there, Brian's family's there, my family's there. And then we're just talking about the baby. And I was in so much pain. I couldn't even move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't sneeze, cough, laugh. I couldn't do anything. I remember the first thing I wanted to eat was ice cream. I don't know why. I felt like I hadn't eaten in forever, but I wanted ice cream. I think, yeah. So then Brian stays the night with me there in a room. And then after all that, you know, they have him in the NICU, and they had told me, you know, that when I was pregnant, I did my research, and I thought he was just going to be in the NICU for the most, like, 4 weeks, probably, like 2 to 4 weeks. So then we would go and see him, and I had planned to breastfeed, but I couldn't. They wouldn't let me breastfeed him because of the breathing tube and all that. So then what I had to do was, like, I was pumping. So I would pump, put them in little syringes, and then I would take it to them. My sister would stay with me. I was in the room for 4 days, and then Brian was going back and forth because of school. And then so they would come to the room, they would be with me, I would pump, and then I would go take the syringes. I would go out, and I would, you know, go to where he was at and give him the milk. I would take them the milk. And then, so it was like that for 4 days. And then I couldn't be there, like, I couldn't stay there longer. So as soon as the 4th day hit, they discharged me. And I was so sad because that meant I had to go home. And I didn't know how I was going to be doing it, how I was going to be going back and forth, or how we were going to be doing that. And then, so I remember I was so sad because I had missed his first Valentine's Day. He was born February 3rd. I had missed his first Valentine's Day. I wasn't there with him. Then, like, I just wanted to be there. I remember the day that we had to leave, I was just so sad on our way over here. I was just crying on our way home. I was just crying a lot. Like, I couldn't stand the fact, like, I couldn't stand the thought of just having my baby in the NICU and not with me. Like, I didn't get to go home with him. And, so then every time we would go back to UCLA to visit him, I would go, like, every 2 days. I remember there was a week where it was, like, 4 days. And I got so sad, and I just started crying to Brian. I said, I can't, like, I have to go see him. Like, just take me to go see him. So one night, like, at 7 p.m., he drove me all the way over there. We drove over there just to see him. We were there for, like, 2 hours or 3 hours, and then we came back. And again, like, every time I would go, I would pump, and then I would leave them milk. And then they weren't feeding him yet, though. He was on IV fluids, like, through the giving him nutrition through the fluid. They weren't feeding him, like, breast milk yet. So then so I go back home, and then finally one weekend when we came down, we came down and we stayed the night with his grandma in LA, and they told us about a social worker, and this social worker that was there, she helped us, and she got us into a house where this house is, they help people that have loved ones and family in the hospital, and they can stay there in that house as long as they have that loved one in the hospital. They can stay there until they leave. So then we were so blessed to get that. It was literally like 7 miles down the hospital. So then I packed all of my stuff. I literally, like, packed all my clothes, I packed everything. I was going to school. I was taking online classes. And I did it online because I already knew that I was going to be in the hospital and that I was going to give birth early and all that stuff. So I was already prepared. So I prepared myself, and I took online classes. So I took all my stuff, like I did my homework over there, and I took my laptop. So then, I started living in LA for 4.5 months, I think. I lived there in that little house that they had. So it's a house and it was 3 rooms. So it's for 3 families there. You share the kitchen and the living room, but there's 3 rooms with they each have their own restroom. It was really nice. It was really nice, very homey, and whenever I was there, Brian would leave. Sunday through Thursday he was gone. He would go Fridays and Saturdays. So I was there. I would take the bus every morning. So from 10 in the morning all the way till 11 p.m. I was out of the house every single day. So at 10 a.m., you know, I would wake up, get ready, get on the bus, and then I would leave. And in the hospital, I would stay there all day. And all I would do was just like hold him, carry him. I was just carrying him, just sit there and watch him. There was times where I couldn't hold him because of like breathing tube or something. Whenever they would like, you know, do stuff for him or they needed to do something to him, I was always there to advocate for him. I was always there, you know, it came down to I was there so much that it came down to the point where they would ask me, like, is it okay we can do this? Or what do you think about this? Or I even had my say in a lot of things, or they would want to do something and I would say like, no, like don't, like I don't think you should do that. He's not ready for it. Because I was just there every single day to where I knew him a lot. Like I had already, like I knew him. So then you know, basically I was there all day. I took him his own blankets. I took him his own clothes. I made it feel like home for him. I read to him all the time. I was just there all the time. Now, the best part about the best part of this story that I'm, you know, about my birth story and all this with Nathan is that I saw God work in him in every single way. Like, there was times where they would say, you know, we think something's wrong with his brain. Okay, so, and this is all from me just sitting there with Nathan and then a doctor coming in and saying, oh, we're going to take a look at him. They would come, they would feel his head, and then they're like, we think something's wrong with him, so we're going to run a test. They said, they thought that, because once they started feeding him food, so they weren't doing it through the mouth, like they would do it through the little tube, and it would go straight down to his stomach. So whenever they would feed him, he would throw it back up, or his stomach would just get really big, or basically they said he wasn't tolerating feeds. And that was the breast milk that I was giving him. And then it came down to the point where they said, you know, we're going to have to switch up to a formula to see, because we don't know if it's the breast milk or, you know, or so then, and on top of that, it was really hard for me to keep pumping because I was just always sad. Like, I would be trying to pump and I would be crying because I'm thinking of him, or I'm looking at a video of him or a picture, and I'd be pumping and I can't. Like, I would get a little bit. I started off getting a lot, and then it just slowly went down, and it was all just because I was like really sad. And whenever they said, you know, we're gonna try the formula, it all started too because one day I didn't take enough milk for him because they were increasing his feeds. So then they went to the formula, but then they said, we want to try this one, which is called Progestamil, and that one is already broken down, and it helps with like gut issues, which is in his case, he had a gut issue. So then they he started tolerating that fine. The only problem was that he would like spit it up and stuff. So then they thought that his intestines weren't working properly. So they thought something was wrong with his brain, and they said that his brain wasn't communicating with his intestines to work. And I thought, I don't get it. Like, no, there's nothing wrong with his brain. The next day they did a test that day, and then the next day they came back and they said, you know, the results came back normal. Like, there's nothing wrong with his head. They did find something in his brain where it's like this gray matter or something like that, which causes, like, he's at high risk for seizures. And so what they did is an EEG where they put stickies all over his head to see if, like, they run it for 24 hours to see if he's, you know, to check brain activity to see if there's any seizures. And thankfully, thank God, he never had a seizure. Up till this day, he has not had a seizure. And I know he's never gonna have a seizure because God has just been so good with him, and he's just got him through so many things. And so about that, they said, there's no seizures. So then that was fine. Then a neurologist came and talked to us, and they said, sometimes we do see babies with this in their brain, but they go on living their life with no seizures. So it's like, he could have one or he could not. We don't know. It's just as far as watching him grow and stuff. So then there was times where they said, we think he's delayed, or we think he's this, and there was just so much. Being in the NICU, it was stressful. I mean, I was with him, so I was happy whenever I was with him. Oh, and I had never heard him cry. I never heard him cry. He never, not even a little noise came out of his mouth for up to 4.5 months or 4 months, I think. The first time I heard him cry, I cried. The first time me and Brian heard him cry, we were like, oh my God, that's his cry. It's so cute. And because we just never heard him cry. His throat was just always so sore and irritated from the tubes and all that stuff. So we just never heard him cry. And then, so there was just so many things that they would say that they thought he had. And then it came down to where they have a conference. So they had a conference with me, Brian, and all the doctors and all the specialists. And one of the specialists was the gastroenterologist, where they specialize in the gut and the intestines and all that. So they were wondering why he didn't tolerate his feeds. Why did he keep spitting up? Why was his stomach being so bloated? And they were just wondering why. And I would always tell them, well, there has to be a blockage. And they said, well, we've run tests already. We don't see a blockage through the x-ray. And I'm like, well, there's no, if his brain is fine, he doesn't have a syndrome. Oh, and that's another thing. They did more testing on genetic testing, and there hasn't been, they were all coming out normal. He doesn't have a syndrome. So, but the doctors wouldn't believe it. They would be like, how does he not have a syndrome? I know that's what they would think, because they were thinking they would still want to say something was wrong with him, because I don't know if it was because of his arms and then the gastroschisis putting together, but I personally seen, from Googling, I've seen babies with arthrogryposis and they don't have a syndrome, and I've seen babies with the gastroschisis and they don't have a syndrome. I've met moms there, I think 4 moms there, that their babies were born with their intestines outside of their stomach, and their babies don't have a syndrome. So whenever they kept saying something is wrong with him or whatever, everything would come out normal, everything would come out fine. The whole blockage thing, they said that he didn't have a blockage, so they wanted to go in. Finally, one of the conferences that we had, they decided that they wanted to do a G-tube. So what a G-tube is a G-tube is whenever they put a little tube in the stomach and you feed your baby through there. So it's like a little tube, you put the milk in there and it goes in and through a pump or something, so I was so against that. I was always so scared. I just couldn't see myself doing that. I would always say, I want to feed him with the bottle. I wanted to breastfeed so bad. And then whenever they said, he probably won't even be able to take a bottle, and also because they thought he couldn't swallow as well, because he has laryngomalacia, where their larynx is weak and soft, so all the secretions, they can't really handle their saliva. So they thought he can't swallow, so he's not going to be able to take anything by mouth. And then whenever we were in the conference and they said that he's mostly going to have a G-tube, I was just so sad. I was like, I really can't believe they're going to do that. So I couldn't believe, my son's going to have a G-tube. And then after speaking to a couple moms that were there that had babies with a G-tube, after speaking to the support group, people that ran it, after speaking to the nurses, how it's not that bad, And I mean, if that's the only way my baby's gonna be able to get fed, then of course I'm gonna do it. And so they ended up doing that. When they went in, they did find a blockage. When they said that they wouldn't, when they said that there wasn't no blockage, and they were so certain that there was no blockage. And so they found a blockage on accident, is what they said. And I personally just believe like that was just a miracle, or that was God guiding them to that blockage to remove it, so that his intestines can start, working properly. And so after that, when they found the blockage, they removed like this much of his intestines. So of course after that, the intestines need time to heal. So then after that, he still wasn't able to tolerate his feeds. And another thing that he couldn't do was he wasn't able to get off of the oxygen. And his oxygen was always running, because it starts off at like 6 liters and it goes down to 1, and after 1 you're off of the oxygen. So he was at like 4 liters and he would go down, but every time he got to 2 or 2.5, he couldn't come off of it, or he would have trouble breathing. So they spoke to the doctors, and there was another conference that we had, and they wanted to do a trach. What a trach is that like a trachea, they put it's like a little hole in the neck, and they put this thing, and it's where babies can breathe. And no, as soon as they said that they wanted to do a trachea, I just thought like, no. Me and Brian both looked into it. We knew that Nathan didn't need it. There was no reason for Nathan to have a trachea. So we would talk to them and we would tell them like, we don't want that. Like, what's our other option? And at that point, I was already so like, I kept putting my foot down every time they tried to do something, because it was just too much. Like, once you're in the NICU and you're like, in the beginning, you're very like, you're, as a mom, like you're just listening to the doctors because they're the doctors, or whatever they say goes. But then after being there for so long and just being frustrated and just wanting to go home, and then just seeing everything that you see in the NICU, again, I was there for 5 months, he was there for 5 months, and after seeing everything that babies go through, and like how just everything, being in a hospital is just so overwhelming. So when they would talk about stuff like, no, you're not doing that, like, no, that's not what we're gonna do. I never said, no, you're not doing that, but I would always say, like, why do we need to do that? Like, can't we just do something else? And I would say, like, I really don't want a trach. Like, I don't feel like he needs a trach. And I would speak to the nurses, and the nurses would put in the notes, like, parents are against the trachea. And they would put the notes. They do consider everything that the parents think. So it's always good to advocate. Like, that's what I was. I was always advocating for Nathan. For everything, every single little thing that he needed, I would speak about it, I would talk about it, I would bring it up, I would tell the doctors, like, no, like, this is what's going on, this is what needs to be done, why don't we do this, why don't we do that? So when they noticed that he wasn't able to get off of the oxygen, that was one of the options, the trachea. But then since I was so against it, then they spoke to the plastic surgeons, which they, at first when he was little, they noticed that his jaw was small. So his jaw was small and his tongue was big. So when he would sleep, his tongue would roll back and he wasn't able to breathe. So he would wake up panicking, or he would start decelerating, is when his heart rate starts going down, which is why we think that was going on in the womb too. But then again, there's a lot of other reasons why it could happen in the womb. So when they said, like, let's look into that, the plastic surgeons looked into his jaw, and they noticed, he we could do that and see if that will help it. So what they do is they cut into the jaw on both sides. I know it's so bad. They cut into both of the sides in the middle of the jaw. In the middle, when they cut it open, they put a metal bar on each side. They close it, and they put a screw, so the screw comes out from behind the ear on both sides, and they close them up, and then they're with that screw, those screws coming out of their cheek, of their jaw, for like a week. They basically start turning it like a centimeter or a millimeter, I forgot how much, like every day or every so often. So they would do that to Nathan, and Nathan was in so much pain. Like he was on so much meds. Like, I'm just so happy because it always felt like it was never ending. It always felt like we were never gonna leave the NICU. There was times where I thought, like, you know, I don't know how long he's gonna be here. We were going on to 6 months. It was 5 months and like a few days, and it was crazy. Like, I was in LA for 5 months. My whole life was dedicated to this little boy there. You know, Bryant sacrificed a lot too, driving back and forth every day because of school. And then, you know, I don't know, now we're here. He's doing so good. The whole G-tube situation, hopefully they take it out soon. They're going to do another test to see if he can swallow. He's like I said, he swallows most of the stuff, just a little bit still goes into his lungs, and we're trying to prevent him getting like aspiration pneumonia. So they're gonna do another test to see if he can swallow, and if he swallows 100% of it, then they'll start talking about taking out the tube. Like I said, he swallows like most of it, just a little bit still goes into his lungs, and that can cause aspiration pneumonia, which is really bad. Babies can get really sick with that, and we don't want that. So yeah, basically that's the birth story. It's really long. If you watched it, if you made it up here to the end, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. There's going to be a lot more videos that I'm going to be posting. You know, you guys will probably get to see when he takes his first bottle, when he gets that taken out. I want to be able to reach out to moms who are going through something similar, or they're pregnant and, you know, they've been told the same thing. I mean, there's tons of babies who go through so much, and I want to be able to like reach out to those moms and let them know like it's gonna be okay, and like God's never gonna put you through something if he knows you can't do it. And obviously I guess God knew that I could handle this, and I get told all the time by doctors and specialists, like, I don't know how you do it, like, you're such a patient woman. And it's not even that hard. Like, the only thing differently with him is just the G-tube. Like, that's all. Like, I don't sit there and give him a bottle. I just connect the little thing and I press run on the pump and the milk starts going in. And that's the only thing that's differently. And I can't wait until I get to give him a bottle. But up till now, that's how he's being fed. And the whole arm thing, I never talked about that because I've always been really bummed out about that. Like, it does get to me, like when I see friends post pictures of their babies and their hands are like this, or they're playing with their hands and arms. I get sad because I want Nathan to be able to do something like that someday, and I believe that he is going to be able to do that. I really do believe it. So one day you guys are going to see him like going like this or whatever. But like I said, if you made it this far to my video, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and there'll be a lot more videos on Nathan's journey. But yeah, this is my first vlog, and hopefully it's a success. Like I said, I do want to reach out to people about what's going on with babies, and that it's not that hard. So thank you so much for watching.